And hello everybody, welcome back to British Stand. We do have a bit of breaking news for you this morning. It's with regard to the political prisoner. That of course is Lucy Connley. Now Lucy Connley has been in jail now probably for just under a year by a few days. And this story has of course irked and outraged most of the nation. Remember, she went to jail for a tweet. A tweet, ladies and gentlemen. However, there does look like there is light at the end of the tunnel, as the breaking news this morning is that she is set to be released in the coming weeks and will only serve 40% of her sentence, and the remainder she can serve at home, according to reports. As always, guys, we are going to be breaking this story down, going through what has been said. But as always, please do hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get involved in the live chat. So, yes, the wife of a former Conservative councillor, Lucy Connley, aged 41, is set to be released from prison in the coming weeks. She's currently serving a 31-month sentence at HMP Peterborough after being convicted in October of inciting racial hatred. Her crime was just a tweet. In the emotional aftermath of the Southport dance studio attack, where 3 young girls were tragically killed, Connolly posted a furious message online. She said she called for mass deportations and, in her own words, said to set fire to all the hotels and said that she didn't care. The tweet reportedly gained over 300,000 views. Before it was deleted, she ended the post by saying, "If that makes me racist, then so be it." Now, let's be clear. This post was prompted by false rumours circulating online about the suspect being behind the Southport attack. Of course, Axel was not an illegal migrant. That turned out not to be true. But the anger, the emotion, and the fear that Connolly expressed weren't isolated, and Reform's UK leader Nigel Farage put it bluntly at the time, stating millions of mothers at that moment felt exactly the same way. And Farage has repeatedly called for Connolly's release, labelling her sentence as absolutely excessive and pointing out the double standards in how the British justice is applied. Connolly has now served 40% of her sentence and is reportedly due to release by August, but this hasn't stopped the conversation or the controversy. Her appeal for a sentence reduction was denied back in May, and Richard Tice had said that Richard Tice had visited Connolly in prison, and what he described paints her as deeply an unsettling picture. According to Tice, Connolly was initially described as a model prisoner, praised by staff, and told she would be moved to what's known as the Good Girls Wing, but things took a sharp turn. She was allegedly jumped, handcuffed, and transferred to what prison staff call the Naughty Girls Wing, a unit usually reserved for more violent offenders. Tice said her experience left him genuinely concerned that there are forces behind the scenes working to keep her locked up longer, not because of the law, but because of politics. In terms of what Chris Phelps said, in terms of the Shadow Home Secretary, he said people have received less time or no time at all for actual physical and sexual assaults. And even Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, said the punishment was disproportionately severe. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer stood firm, insisting that he always supports the UK court system. However, as we know, guys, in this country, there is definitely a two-tier justice system. And when we see drug dealers, violent offenders, and foreign criminals are routinely spared deportation because of so-called human rights concerns, while someone like Lucy Connley was jailed for a tweet. What is the message behind the justice system? Really, we are definitely operating under a two-tier legal system, and you can see that, especially when you compare a similar story at the same time with Hugh Edwards and then Lucy Connley. If you look at both of their crimes around the same time, I mean, which one do you think is a threat to society? I mean, again, I'll let you decide on that one. But look, this is good news. 40% of her sentence, won't be serving the full 31 months, will be released in the next couple of days, which is, I suppose, a good thing for her and her family. Of course, they've been going through a torrid time, but she should have never been in jail for a year in the first place. A year, 1 year in prison. That is absolutely mental. But yeah, this is modern Britain, right? We're going to be monitored for our tweets. We're going to be monitored for what we can and can't say online and then expressing opinion. Now, I don't condone what Lucy Connley wrote on social media, but, you know, going to prison for 1 year of your life for that? Very, very, very excessive when you see people like Hugh Edwards serve their sentence at home. It's absolutely disgusting. But guys, we will keep a close eye on what follows from this, of course. But the good news is that she is, of course, being released in the coming weeks and will be freed in August. So the nightmare, I suppose, for her is coming to an end, but she'll be able to share her side of the story, her stories from prison. I'm sure she'll be on the podcast circuit upon her release, which you'll be able to hear probably her story of things. But my goodness me, it's really, really wild situation. I do feel for her. I feel for her family. But she is just one of these individuals that got jailed for something. You think about guys that are no longer with us. Peter Lynch, of course, he committed suicide in prison for holding a placard. And then you've got others, countless people that, of course, were jailed over a year ago, or just under a year ago, due to the aftermath of the Southport riots, which was absolutely bonkers and something that I still can't get in my head and register in my head to this day. I've seen so many people on the other side of politics that have got nothing. And what's with this guy as well? I mean, his trial was supposed to be happening in August. Nearly a year later, was it the Labour MP that called for the slitting of the throats of the right wing, essentially? He's still not even been in jail yet. Wild. Really, really wild. But guys, let's get into the live chat, see what people are saying with regard to this news. It's very rare that I report good news here on British Stand, because usually most of the news coming out of the UK is utter torrid and depressing. But I suppose this is good news from a disastrous situation that was already in place. Yeah, that's the guy, Ricky Jones. Ricky Jones was the gentleman. Yeah, he's still not had his trial yet. And it's nearly a year ago since this happened. So it just goes to show people were fast-tracked. And if you're on a certain side of the political spectrum, you'd be dealt with completely differently. Benjamin Outdoor says they're only doing this because they know what's coming with the Manchester Airport verdict. Yeah. Well, we heard that news yesterday, of course, that one, of course, had been found guilty of assault on a police officer. Stepsky says they will impose restrictions on her that she cannot talk about the case, conviction or sentence, or she will go back to jail. Good point. Good point. But then again, I mean, Tommy speaks pretty openly about his situation. I think there's certain things that he can't say when he's on podcasts, but he's pretty open about his time in prison and why he got there. So maybe, but yeah, you could be right. There could be a gagging order in place. Who knows? I don't know. In USA, you are not allowed to criticize a certain country that controls Trump. Oh, yeah. Melody Moore says, "Rip Peter Lynch, great granddad. So sorry." Yeah, a lot of people saying that that they're going to censor her when she's out. I mean, we'll have to see what she can and can't say. But with Tommy's situation, he's allowed to speak openly about it, usually. But there's certain things that he can't talk about when it comes to his time in prison and some of the things that he's been charged with and whatnot. Craig says, this is fantastic news about Lucy. It is. I mean, it's good news. It's good news from a bad situation, an effed up situation that shouldn't have never been the case. But I suppose it's good news from a messed up situation. She should never have been in prison for that. All Seeing Eye says, people will not forget what Parliament has done to this woman. It's sickening. Hope she doesn't let it lay. It'll be interesting what her next move is. Her next steps are, of course, coming out of prison, and where she's going to go with this. A lot of people saying about suing, a lot of people saying about taking it further up. But we'll see. We'll see what her game plan is. Of course, she'll be probably the most viewed interviews upon her release if she is able to talk. I'm sure GB News and a few others will get there and try and get some interviews from her perspective of everything, and we'll have to see what happens in due course. Craig says, especially for a family. Yeah, I mean, she's a mother, right? It's wild. 1 year. 1 year in prison for writing a tweet. And again, just to clarify, I don't condone the message that she put in that said tweet. But is it enough to go to prison for 1 year? I don't think so. Someone says, we need free speech. Is there a GoFundMe page for Lucy? I'm not sure. I've not seen anything just yet, but if there is, then of course I'll share it to everybody. Colin says, this crime against free speech will never be forgotten by the people. Starmer was embarrassed by Trump, and I hope Lucy gets to talk to Trump to further expose Starmer's lies about free speech. Now, yesterday, you make a good point there with regard to Trump. Of course, there was that kind of interview that he had on the plane away from Keir Starmer, and he spoke a lot about Britain. Of course, we shared the report yesterday where he spoke about the migrant hotels. We also shared the bit where he fucking ridiculed Sadiq Khan again for the second time in a couple of days. However, he was speaking a lot about other things like the suppression of free speech. He keeps on getting confronted about that. He keeps on getting confronted about the suppression of free speech within the United Kingdom. And Donald Trump then said his piece, right? He was like, well, I keep getting told that. I think he's got an eye open for it. But we're going to watch the whole thing in the next live stream. I think it's about 5-6 minutes. But he speaks about a lot about the UK, and I think he's aware. You can tell by his body language, the way he replies to things. He speaks a lot in depth about it. The next live stream we'll speak about Trump and talk about JD Vance maybe as well. He's been speaking about Europe again as well. So, we'll probably go live with that in about an hour and a half and talk about that. But I just wanted to share this good news with regard to Lucy Connley, and we'll wrap it up there. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button and all that jazz, and get involved in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next live stream. Take care, look after yourself.